Welcome to this week's edition of Black Authors Matter TV, where we interview the latest movers and shakers in the African American literary community. You'll meet some old friends, discover new ones, and stay abreast of the latest book developments around the country and even the world. So sit back and relax for the next 2 hours with Black Authors Matter TV co-hosts Gwen Richardson and Dr. Rhonda Lawson.
Good evening and welcome to the September 3rd edition of Black Authors Matter TV. I can't believe it's already September. The year 2024 is on its way out. The year will be gone soon before we know it, because once you get to September, it's just a rush after that. But anyway, welcome to Black Authors Matter TV. I'm Gwen Richardson, your host for tonight. My co-host, Rhonda Lawson, will be joining us a little later. But I want to welcome everybody to the show. For those who are returning, welcome back. And for those who are new viewers, welcome to the show. We have another amazing lineup again tonight, like we always do. And the only thing I want to mention is the National Black Book Festival is coming. It's only 7 weeks away. And we're expecting a jam-packed weekend of exchange. This will be the biggest festival we've had in terms of author participation. And we had so many people. We sold out 2 months ago, but every day I get 4 or 5 more people who want to sign up. We just don't have the space. So we are excited about this year's event and our lineup of featured authors. If you had a chance to see our promo video, take a look. If you haven't had a chance, it's posted on our Facebook page, and it's really a nice video. It talks about the event and what you can expect, and has the photos of the featured authors and all of that. So be sure to, if you haven't already marked your calendar, be sure to mark it. We really want to see all of you there, and it's going to be great. So our first guest is Anna Dow. I think her last name is pronounced Dow, but she has a memoir, and her memoir is about her growing up doing lots of globe trotting, and she has a background from a Mali, Malian. I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but because it's not Somali, it's Mali. But her grandmother was from Mali, and she talks about all the cultural experiences she had, and she ended up in New York City. So, Anna, welcome to Black Authors Matter TV.
Thank you so much. It's so good to finally meet you face to face. How are you?
I'm doing great. And now, did I say it right, Malian?
Absolutely.
Okay, your grandmother was from Mali. And now, were you born in the United States?
No, ma'am. I was born in France.
Oh, okay.
Yes. And
Okay.
so I had quite an adventure. My parents met in Mali, fell in love with Mali, and then went to study in France. And that's where I was born. And then shortly after that, they separated, and Mali was colonized by France.
That's what I was going to ask about that.
That's why the working language is French.
Okay.
But our national language is Bambara. And I feel that I was privileged to kind of grow up in an area where tradition and modern seem to have found a way to cohabit. So that in some instance, when I went to visit my grandmother, it was the traditional way of living, with the elders telling stories and kind of the elders at that time, most of them didn't go to school and didn't know how to read or write. But there is a saying that there are a lot of illiterate people in Mali, but there are no ignorant people in Mali because they have been taught by the way of the elders, centuries and centuries of wisdom, acquire knowledge that each generation had the duty to transmit to the other one. That was on my grandmother's side. On my father's side and mother's side, I went to school. I went to the French school. I learned to read, I learned to write, but I believe that it's the storytelling that I experienced from my elders that actually gave me the love for storytelling and later on writing.
Right. So that oral tradition, we transferred that from the motherland when we came here, and we still practice some of that here. And I've heard several different authors, or just, well, people who've written books or authors who've been on the show that are from different parts of Africa, talk about the elders and how they would tell stories. And a lot of there's some African tales that actually cross countries, from not necessarily from one country, but they're told in different countries, and they made their way to the United States through storytelling.
Yes. I may I call you Gwen, by the way,
Yeah,
or
please
would you like
do.
to be
Please,
called Gwen?
please do.
I would like to be, no, I want to be mindful.
Mm-hmm.
For me, the elders, that was a school on its own,
Yes.
because it's everything that you are not taught in school. Since everything is observation, and there is this understanding that everything is intertwined. The universe is one big web. And in that web, the elder's responsibility is to teach you how to find your seat, how to sit comfortably so that you go through your journey without being unbearable for yourself and for others. And so in doing so, there are teachings. How do you compromise without losing your integrity? How do you learn to know yourself, and what are the values that you hold dear, so that no matter what happens, no matter the temptations or the challenges, you might have doubts, but there comes a point where when it comes time to make a choice, you really don't lose your way. And so the value is patience, first of all, and sitting quietly. I think that we learn patience and sitting quietly by just listening to the stories, because we weren't allowed to interrupt during the storytelling. So
yeah,
you have to wait.
Now that used to be something that we practiced in the United States, that children didn't interrupt elders.
Absolutely.
But that hasn't been taught to enough. I won't say not at all, but enough of the younger generations of today. They don't have the same level of respect, and they're not the same boundaries
No.
that I had, because the respect for the elders was, it was understood, but it was like after God.
Yeah.
That was second.
Yeah.
And everybody acted that way.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it was pure fear. By the way, it was pure fear, right? After God, it was really pure
yes,
fear, because
yes,
there was no good outcome coming from being disrespectful to an elder. There was just no good outcome.
right. That's true. If you don't respect your parents, let's say, as those elders, if you don't respect your parents, you're not going to respect authority, which means
Absolutely.
you're not going to be successful, because
Absolutely.
you have to bow to the authority of somebody in this world. God, starting with God, but any job you go to, any school you go to, anywhere you go, you have to respect authority. And if you don't, you're going to have problems your whole life.
Absolutely.
You're going to have serious problems.
Absolutely.
And you might lose your life behind it, So tell us a little bit about Mali. We don't hear a lot about Mali in the news, or that's not one of you hear mostly about Nigeria or South Africa or some other countries, but we don't hear a lot about Mali.
No, because Mali, first of all, is a very poor country in terms of maybe wealth, but in terms of culture, it's extremely rich. And unfortunately, one of the things that happened, and it's I think it's a world, um, is that we have technology and um, television and all these accesses have been great in one hand, but on the other hand, they gave the illusion that getting rich or kind of leading a certain life of wealth was the answer to all the problems, right? And it kind of, it's not just Europe or America, it's Africa everywhere. But you don't hear about Mali, and yet I'm gonna I'll bet anything that you have heard of Timbuktu.
Yes, yes.
Timbuktu is in Mali.
Okay, well, that's new information. A lot of people don't even know Timbuktu is a real place.
Yes,
People
it's
think
a
it's like
real
a
place.
fictional place, but it's a real place. I didn't know what country it was in.
It's in Mali, and the
Mali,
reason
okay.
why it is Timbuktu is the well of Buktu. Basically, the northern part of Mali is desert, and during the 13th and 14th century, it became a scholar center because people from the northern part of Africa, Morocco, even Europe came, and there was an exchange. There was trades, exchange of salt, what you call it, and other goods for the gold of Mali. And
Oh,
if you heard the history of the 14th century king of Mali, the richest man on earth, Kankou Musa, who during the pilgrimage from Mali to Mecca distributed so much gold that the price of gold plummeted for years.
oh, okay.
And so it's that rich culture that I was privileged to kind of grow up in, and that once I came to the US, because I arrived in the US about a little bit more than 30 years ago,
Okay.
and I had my head filled with things that I wanted to do. I had a plan, and if plan A didn't work, I had a plan B, plan C, plan D, until basically it came to a screeching halt when I basically had a burnout. And then the question was, why did I come? What is it that I want? And why do I want the things that I want? But I didn't know all that. And so finding Lalla's Anna is basically the journey of my conversation with my grandmother, who then uh, took me when I was at my lowest and didn't have a clue of what to do next because the American dream wasn't the American dream. And not knowing where to go from that, she sat me down and said, okay, it's time now to quiet your mind. You have listened to everybody on earth tell you how to be, what to do, and who to be. But who do you want to be and why?
Okay. Now, at what point did this happen?
This happened about, I would say, about 20 years ago.
Okay. So it's in your adult life.
It's in, oh yes, in my very adult life,
Okay.
when I had, again, to me, coming to the United States, I fell in love with New York. And for me, New York has always been the place to be. It was bubbling. It's still bubbling, by the way, with a lot of energy, with a lot of possibilities. Anything you can really, anything can happen here. But the danger of anything can happen here. The other flip side of it is that if you're not grounded in something really strong, that is become your barometer, that become your compass, you can get lost.
Okay.
And
I can see how that would happen. In fact, I'm going to be in New York this weekend, and I saw that you were signing your books at the Harlem
yes,
Book
ma'am.
Fair.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
the show, Rhonda and I, she's my co-host, we're going to be there at the Harlem Book Fair,
Yes.
and we're going to be promoting the show. But we also have our literary themed T-shirts, and she has some of her books. I'm not bringing my books because I'm flying, so books are just too heavy to work with when you're flying. I've done it once, and I said never again. But I'm excited about being there, and I've been in New York, but it's been a long time, and I've never been to the Harlem Book Fair. So, but I've known the organizer for several years, and excited about it. So, oh, now you're going to be on the main stage reading?
Yes, I'm going to be where it's going to be under our publisher's tent, Wordy.
Okay.
And I'm going to be reading and signing because there was some conflict with the time, but I'll be there. I'll be there all day, but particularly reading and signing between 12 and 1.
Okay. Yeah, well, we'll be there all day long.
Oh, great. It'll be great to
And
see you.
and even though Rhonda, my co-host, is not on yet because she ran late with work, one of our viewers, Stephanie Burnham, she's a self-appointed helper. I appreciate you, Stephanie. She puts things in the chat, like the links and things like that. That's the role Rhonda plays, as well as interviewing. And so the Wordy link for your information is in the chat. Do you have a copy of your book handy?
Oh, yes. If I
Show it.
Can you see it?
Yes. Okay. Pull it closer to you. Pull it closer to you. Yes, closer to you. Yes. Okay. So it's Finding Lalla. Layla or Lalla?
Lalla.
Lalla's
Anna.
And Lalla is your grandmother's
That's
name?
my grandmother. Yes.
Okay. Okay. So she's the one that told you you needed to take a moment.
Yeah, she reminded me. She reminded me that I was. It's almost as if just being out there and running so much for so many things that I had lost touch of my own self, meaning that sense of belonging, that sense of, wait a minute, who are you at the end of the day? And she was responsible for reminding me that, to kind of not pursue things just because they look good, but to know why I'm pursuing them. And the most difficult or the most challenging thing in a quest in my quest for me was to answering the whys. Why do you want the things that you want?
Okay.
And then in the scheme of that, once you get it, or once you have it, what is it that you hope it will bring you and why? What is it that you will do with it and why? So it kind of brings full circle for me at the end to kind of give me a sense of belonging. I'm a legacy. I am the one, and like everybody, I like telling that people, I said, please remember that each and every one of us is here because somebody survived or somebody thrived.
Yes. Yes.
Right?
And somebody prayed.
And somebody prayed.
Somebody
and
prayed.
Just one person. Is generation of people who have survived, prayed, and thrived.
And sacrificed. You know, it's a lot of
exactly.
A lot of delayed gratification got us where we are now.
So if we are standing on the shoulders of all those who came before us, then life has to be better than just the acquisition of material things. That is not good.
Right.
It has to be more than that.
Yes.
And so why are we here? Why am I here? What is it that I can do that is going to continue or kind of take at another level the work that those who have come before me have done? What is my legacy going to be?
Well, that's something good to contemplate and plan for, and not just think that it will just happen.
Yes.
We have to be intentional.
Yes.
About making it happen.
Yes.
And I believe where there's a will, there's a way. But you have to have the will, and you have to be willing to put forth the effort.
Absolutely.
And so your book is now where your memoir, where what aspect of your life or what period in your life does the book start with? Some people do I was born so and so and then continue. Some people kind of start in the middle and then move forward, or they talk about a crucible or an arc in their life, something, it could be tragic and triumphant in the end that occurs. So how does your memoir start?
It starts with the transition of Lalla.
Okay. Okay.
Almost as if symbolically there was a passing of a baton, right?
Okay.
She made a promise when everything was chaotic in my life, and I was like, she was really the backbone, but I kind of leaned on before I had faith, or before faith became a central part of my life. And her promise was, I will always be here until you find your way. And so after I went through this initiation, I call it initiation, a rite of passages, and she was sure now that I had found my way, that I could go on without leaning on her or without looking for her to answer some questions. That's when she transitioned.
So she was hanging on until.
Yes, she hung on until she was sure that I was okay.
Oh, well, and that's something that I've heard repeatedly from people about elders who they know they're dying, they kind of hang on until they're able to either talk to someone that's important or pass information that's important. So when you went to New York, what period of your life, how old were you, and what did you end up pursuing, like for career-wise?
When I first came to New York, I think I pursued everything that I could get, because basically it was get a job. And I was in my early 30s. And I just decided, I was working in Mali, and I just decided, you know what, I'm bored. I want a change. And so I had a conversation with my grandmother, as always, and she was like, the world is too vast for you to stay in one place if you're not happy. Nobody always walk with you, right? And so that gave me the wing to say, okay, you know what, I'm going to try this New York thing. And when
Okay. Okay. Now, did you know anybody in New York?
My sister was working here, and so I could land. When I landed, I ended up living with her.
Okay.
I did some babysitting. What did I do in the beginning? I was a secretary. I was a salesperson. I was an accountant part-time. I did all kind of job. At the same time, I was writing. And what was funny is that storytelling has always been a passion, something that I wanted to do. But when I first started, my English was really like, I'm still learning to properly do it, but it was really difficult at the time. And I remember the rejection letters at the time was like, oh, this is cute, or this is nice, or, get call us when you learn how to really write it in proper English. But for some reason, Gwen, I couldn't give up. I have tons of rejection letters, like for the years. This book is a 20-year in the making.
Okay.
Simply for two reasons. Simply because some of the experience I hadn't lived, some of the experience that I write about, I hadn't lived them. And the first chapter starts with the transition of Lalla. So the book really came together. I had all the pieces together after Lalla transition.
Okay.
But for the years, I kept, submitting and trying to see anybody would be interested. And it was always like, oh, interesting idea, but it needs so much work. And so it was also putting up with my ego and accepting that I didn't know better, but I didn't know it all. And accepting criticism and accepting people coming in to edit the work and accepting people coming and giving me ideas. And then finding the balance between the criticism that I could take because they didn't change anything in the integrity of a story, and the criticism that I had to put aside because they would change the story and make it something that wasn't me.
Okay. Well, don't now the rejection letters that you received, that's a common thing for authors
Yes.
when they're first trying to get going or trying to get published or trying to find an agent or trying to find a publisher that will look at their work or that I hear stacks of rejection letters. I hear that from just about all of them. If they pursued to be with a major publisher.
Mm-hmm.
And so I haven't experienced that because I haven't pursued that. I have 15 books, but I self-publish my books. And so because I'm not good at rejection, not to say other people are, but
Yeah,
I really am not. I don't, if I get rejected, like if I got 3 rejection letters, I probably would quit.
oh,
So I don't, if I'm not good at something, and my books are very good, but they're not necessarily what the big publishers would consider to be quote marketable or they're very specific, so but some people continue on. I applaud them for that because I could not do that. But it takes a lot of fortitude to keep going in the face of that rejection. But in the end, you have become more established. You're past that hurdle. That was a hurdle that you had to get over. And so, and now you have your book. Yes. And now when did the book come out exactly?
It came out this April 22nd of this year.
Of this year. Okay. Yes. So it's still a new book. Yes. And how has the response been to it?
The response has been good because I am very well aware that because one of the things that was instrumental for me was to be as candid as possible. So it is a profoundly personal journey that I'm sharing with the reader. And the doubts and the questions, the pain and the anger are all in there.
Okay.
And how through it all, basically, by the grace of God, and also because I was fortunate, and I'm very grateful for that. When I look at everything that happened, I had good people in my life. And sometimes I think that I took that for granted. The fact that I had good, decent people, even those who hurt me the most in my family, at the core, they are good, decent people who were just also handling their own insecurities and their own pain that they haven't dealt with. But you see that, I think, with time. And so, like I said, one of the things that I pride is that it's deeply, deeply, deeply personal. And I think that it was, for me, it was the only way to connect. It was the only way to give the story purpose.
Okay. Well, Anna, we are at the end of our time. So if you could show your book again.
I will.
To the audience, is called Finding Lalla's Anna.
Yes.
And the book is available at
Amazon. Absolutely.
And if you're going to be at the Harlem Book Fair this Saturday.
Yes.
Check out.
Absolutely.
Anna, she's gonna be in the Wordy tent.
Yes.
And she's going to be signing her book from 12 to 1. So I hope to run into you while we're there. We're going to be there.
I hope so too.
To run into you.
Just one more thing. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for being a guest.
Thank you, thank you. It's been such a pleasure talking with you and having all the email and everything. So thank you, gratitude.
Okay, well, thank you so much for being a guest on Black Authors Matter TV and continued success with your book.
Thank you so much. See you soon.
Okay, have a great evening.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, well, that was our first guest, and we are moving right along. My co-host Rhonda will be here soon, I'm hoping, so she can help with some of the online duty. But Stephanie Burnham is filling in her stead. Stephanie, I appreciate you very much. So our next guest has a new book out. It came out about a month ago. Her name is, and I'm going to find out if she pronounces it Tanya or Tanya, because some people pronounce it one way and other people pronounce it a different way. So I want to find out, is it pronounced Tanya or Tanya?
It's Tanya.
Tanya, okay, because sometimes Tanya is with an O. So, but Tanya has a really incredible book. I was just reading about it, and I have many questions, but it's called Never Saw Me Coming. And you have a small one behind you, but do you have a bigger one you can hold up?
I certainly do.
Book? Okay.
Around my house. Here it is right
Never
here.
Saw Me Coming. And it's a memoir.
Yes.
But it's an amazing story. I just, I'm going to let you tell it, but she has an incredible tale to tell about how she did some things as a young person and figured out how to beat the system,
Yes.
and then ended up overcoming it in the end. But I'll let you tell us about. This is one thing that you put that I read about your book that I thought was incredible, because your book is about financial crimes. Well, I'll just say it like that. But when you said that the FBI told you that these are not the kinds of crimes Black people are smart enough to commit, I was just like, okay, well, obviously you're wrong about that. But that's just so insulting that someone would say that to you. I mean, that's incredibly insulting, arrogant.
That was my turning point.
All of that. That would take me over the edge. It would make me, want to do something. Okay, I'm gonna show you. But anyway, tell us the beginnings, your beginnings as a precocious young lady, learning things and figuring things out, how to do things. I'm a similar person. I haven't, been in trouble with but I've always thought I could figure things out, So I can relate to you. Let's say it like that. So anyway, tell us about how you started and how it kept going.
So, well, I grew up in North Minneapolis. I had wonderful parents, and my parents has always taught all of the kids to be confident, believe in yourself, be strong, be proud to be a Black woman. And they taught us everything about people and understanding that no matter if someone is Black, green, blue, red, blue, we're all human beings. We never looked at color. We grew up in a Jewish neighborhood, and I had never ever experienced racism at all. I mean, we had all of our neighbors they were all Jewish that we grew up with, but our neighbors were, Mexican, Indian, just all races of people. And so I was just always one of those kids that raised my hand in school, always wanted to know what the right answers were, and just very confident. And I grew up with my dad was friends with a bunch of billionaires, like the richest some of the richest people in the world, and they were white billionaires, but they were all kind, very nice. And he used to bring us over to their homes, and they lived in these big mansions, but they were always kind to us. But when I came back to the other side, I was wondering how come there were so many Black poor people, and how come we couldn't live like that? And how come other minorities couldn't live like that? So I didn't like it. I didn't like it at all. And I just figured that, my dad was a community man and did a lot for the community. He owned a movie theater, and his whole dream was helping the unfortunate, the low income people, and giving them a better life. So I decided that's what I had to do. I had to help the people that couldn't help themselves.
Okay, so you started off with an honorable objective.
Yes.
And so how did you start the execution process of your plan?
So I was in love with Michael Jackson. So my twin sister and I had to go out there to meet Michael Jackson. Probably the average person would just be a fan and get posters, but I was 12 years old and I was 14 years old. And I was like, I gotta meet him, I gotta meet him. So I took a trip out to Los Angeles. I took my twin sister and a friend, and we went out to see Michael Jackson. And I never got a chance to meet him, of course. But after that whole scenario, I came back home, and the one thing is, when I went to California, my family lived in Compton, and I had never seen anything like that, with people, being that poor and living in homes that had, bars on the windows and the doors, and all that bothered me. So I came back home, and I decided that I was going to help people. And I became like the Robin Hood of the neighborhood. And there were some families that would have like their lights turned off, and I would get them turned back on because it was bothering me that kids couldn't read books at night because their lights were cut off. I get a little sensitive about it, but so I just started paying people's utilities, paying their bills, mortgages for, older people that couldn't help themselves. And I was like the neighborhood Robin Hood. So
Okay, so how did you accomplish this?
how did I what? I'm sorry.
How did you accomplish this?
Well, so I would call like utility companies. I would pretend as though I was an employee there, and I would say like, just making up a name, Jackie Johnson came in to pay their bill, but they really didn't. And they would believe that I was an employee, and then they would turn the lights back on or turn the gas back on, and I started out doing things like that. I wasn't yet working on the computers.
Oh, okay.
But
So you were like impersonating an employee.
yes.
I was just I didn't know if you were going online into their accounts
Oh,
and
no.
putting the money on their bill. That's what I was trying to figure out.
Oh, no, not yet.
Not yet. Okay. Okay. But you had a good objective. Your heart was in the right place. Just,
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
So that was how you started, and you were able to get away with these small things, I'm assuming.
The small things. Yep. I was helping people. It bothered. There were older people that couldn't pay their mortgages. They could no longer work. They were senior citizens. And I mean, I had to come through. That's what I was raised to do. You got to help, people that can't help themselves, other human beings, so I felt like that was my job.
Okay, and then from there,
Mhm.
where do we go from there?
So from there, my grandmother was a maid in Dallas, Texas, and she works for a wealthy white family. And she was getting older, and she was getting glaucoma. And she always wanted to travel the world, but she never had the money to do so. So I was going to the library. I was learning about computers. I was learning a lot about computers, and I ended up getting a computer. not in the right way, but I got a computer in my home. And the very first transaction I did with the computer is I sent it to my grandmother in Dallas, Texas, because I wanted her to travel the world. She was getting old, older, and I wanted her to see the world. It was her dream. So I sent her $5,000. I didn't think the transaction worked, and found out later it did, but she wouldn't touch the money. She was like, she asked my mom and dad, who sent this money? Who sent this money? And it was me. But at the time, I didn't tell my parents because I didn't want them to know.
Oh, okay. So how old were you when you were doing this?
16,
About 16.
maybe
Okay.
almost 17. Yes.
Okay. So 16, 17, you're sending your grandmother money from somewhere. It wasn't your money.
It wasn't my money.
Okay.
No.
But you found money somehow through the computer, and you put it in your grandmother's account. Is that what you did? Okay. Well, that was crafty. That you would even think to do something like that. But okay, but we're still the heart's in the right place. You want your grandmother to go be able to travel, but she was wise enough to know that money doesn't
To
come to
show up
you
in
like
your
that.
account right now.
If
But
it
my
does,
sister,
it's a mistake, and you need to leave it there until the bank figures the mistake out.
well, they never did.
Oh,
So
they
yeah,
never did.
I,
Oh,
I was
okay.
I
Well,
was figuring out some things, but
yeah, well, not that particular instance. Because the thing, once people get away with something one time or two times, and then the third time, then they kind of increase what they're doing because they got away before. And then the more they get away, the more they do, until eventually it catches up.
yeah.
So we're 16. We're trying to get your grandma to go on some trips, and you
Mhm.
transfer some funds. And then, so since that worked in terms of the transfer,
Uh-huh.
so well, I'm not going to put words in your mouth. You you said, okay, that works. So then where'd your mind go from there?
Oh, so from there, my dad owned a movie theater. Actually, Prince gave his first concert there. I grew up with Prince. I grew up with Jimmy Jam, Terry Lewis, and Morris
Okay.
Day, and all of them. So, uh,
Okay.
my dad had a movie theater, and I used to
Mhm.
go to the movie theater. He got this new. He was a community man. He did everything to help everyone, and Prince actually gave his first concert at my dad's. I've been knowing Prince since I was very young. And I talk about him just a little bit in the book. His sister Taika was wonderful. But we were all like family back in Minneapolis in the day. And so my dad had this movie theater, and lots of the Black people couldn't go downtown to the white theaters because it cost too much. So my dad created, he opened up this movie theater. He got the money from one of his friends, one of his billionaire
One of the
friends.
billionaire friends.
Now.
Okay.
And I don't know, I don't think he ever really made money because he let everyone in free. And I mean, he used to just do things for senior citizens. He was just John, he worked at the theater. He was sleeping on a bench. My dad brought him in, gave him a room. He was just that kind of man, he was always finding people jobs and just helping people. And so I was like the little cashier and popcorn lady there. And Prince had given his first concert up there at the theater as well. Warner Brothers wanted him to do Madison Square Garden, but he was like, no, I'm doing it for Smitty. And then I started going out, hitting the clubs. I was a little too young to really be going, but I met this guy, and I started doing things for him. And at that point, I was taking money from Western Unions, and I advanced from the Western Unions to the banks.
Wow. Okay. So then we eventually get caught.
Uh-huh. So
So how were you and I don't want you to reveal too much about the book, so people will,
To
say,
buy it.
want to know what's going to happen next. But what, without revealing too much, how did you get caught in terms of, it was just the number of transactions eventually caught up with you? Is that what it was, or was it one particular transaction that was a red flag and then they started working their way back from there?
Well, I got caught a few times. So
So
the
you
very
talked your way
first
out
time-
of it? Did you, you can play dumb sometimes. That works. Sometimes, depending on the circumstance. But
But the very first time, someone got caught doing something else and had heard, because word spreads around in the neighborhood, this girl, she's got a lot of money or she can make money. And then they got in trouble for something. I don't know what it was. And then, they said we have a bigger fish, basically, which
oh, the turn state's evidence.
well,
And
I didn't have a
you were,
charge. I didn't have a charge at the time. They were just
well, but they gave away a bigger fish, like you said.
bigger fish, yeah. But
Why
I
are you
was
looking at us when this other person is? I can show you somebody that did something
absolutely.
much worse than what.
Absolutely. So that's when they
Okay.
caught on to what I was doing because they didn't know. And
Oh, okay. So,
well, initially they didn't actually think it was me at all. They thought it was a white man who they were calling the mastermind because they didn't think that a Black woman could be smart enough to do it.
yeah, that statement from the FBI was in your book. I'm like, well, that is so insulting, and it's a shame that people, and I'm not saying that people should commit crimes. I'm saying the part about being smart, that part, you
Absolutely.
would think that was way, way in our rearview mirrors, but it's not, because it rears its head every now and then.
Absolutely. And that was my fight. So I just kind of at that point, because that was my turning point, because uh, that was when I said, I'm going to have to show you what this Black woman can do.
Okay.
Yes. And I did, and I was fighting them cat and mouse every step of the way. I was fearless. I didn't care, and they weren't going to tell me that. And I didn't feel like I was just fighting by myself. I felt like I was fighting for other women, other Black women, other, green women, blue. I was fighting, and I wasn't afraid to do so. You're not going to tell me that intelligence is determined by the color of your skin. So come on, let's do it. Let me show you. And that's what I did. So that was my biggest fight. A lot of people say, oh, she was, the feds say, oh, she's just greedy. And no, I had to show them. I had to do it. It was in my heart. So
Now, actually, smart is the wrong word, even though that's the word they use, but it's more cunning than smart. It's and generally, just generally, we don't go in that direction with things.
right.
Generally,
Absolutely.
there are a few exceptions, but that's not those kind of white collar. They call them white collar crimes or whatever. Those are normally done by white men. That's normally who does them. Not even white women do that many of those, relatively speaking.
Right. Right.
It's like
Right.
the this latest one, Freed, the guy who did all that crypto stuff, and they caught him
Oh
about a
yeah.
year ago, and
Uh-huh.
he got 20 years or 25 years, and which he should have, because he claimed, on the one hand, he claimed he was a genius to be able to do this, whatever, the transactions. But then on the other hand, he wasn't smart enough to know he was supposed to keep records. So either you're dumb or you're smart. He didn't know what the rule. He didn't know there were rules.
Right. Right. Right.
They, claim ignorance. I guess you have to have a defense. But you weren't using that as a defense. Yours was, I'm going to show you that your assessment of me is completely off. And
Absolutely.
Yeah, I've done a couple of things to show people, but not they weren't illegal. But you know, I I have been in the position where people didn't think that I was capable of doing something, and the underestimation is one of really. I don't know if it's in the book, The Art of War, but I know being underestimated by your opponent is a great tool to use.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
so when you finally did have, you know, well, you got caught in the system in terms of being charged, I'll
Uh-huh.
say charged.
Mhm.
How were you able to? Why aren't you in prison?
Well,
I mean, it just
so what
how were
happened?
you able to with how were you able to avoid prison?
Well, I didn't avoid prison. I went to prison. I escaped from prison.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
it's all in the book.
Okay, and so you're an escapee as of now, or that's
No,
about
no,
that's
it's all happened a long time ago, many years
okay.
ago.
I was gonna say, are you on the show from a non-disclosed location? They want to be tapping into my Zoom to see who's on the other end. So okay, so how long were you in prison?
A total of 13 years.
Oh, that's a long time.
That's a lot. I had the longest sentence ever given to a white collar offender in the country. They gave me 24 and a half years. No one else had gotten a sentence even close to that. I never
Wow.
been violent. I've never used drugs. I've never sold drugs. I just used my brain, and they felt like that was worth 24 and a half years.
So the 13 years that how did your family react to all
Oh,
of this?
heartbroken, heartbroken. Of
Yeah.
course. I mean, it was very sad for them and for me to see them in that state of mind. But sometimes you just have to do what you have to do. If you believe in something in your heart, you got to do it by any means necessary.
So when you were um 13 years is a long time. So how did you utilize your time behind bars? Did you write this book while you were there, or was that, you said that's a long time behind you, but what did you do? Like, did you end up running the place with the
I mean, there was just so much happening. So much happening, and I didn't spend the time straight because I escaped, like I told you. So I was gone. The feds were taking me all over the world, trying to charge me everywhere I mean, they were not, I wouldn't say the world, but all over the country trying to charge me. There was just a lot of things that were being done that shouldn't have been done. And here's the thing, I knew what I was doing. I believe in equality. I mean, I'm always willing to take responsibility for my actions, but you can't give me 24 and a half years and everybody else that are taking billions are doing 1 year,
Mhm.
2 years.
Okay.
So yeah, so it was just it. I had to just continue fighting, but I didn't stay in prison for the whole 13 years. That was the total. Uh,
Okay.
but there was a lot of stuff going on, back and forth, a lot of stuff, a lot of stuff.
So did your attorney try to, did you have good legal representation? Did they try to give you a lesser sentence? Did they try to, have the lay you're you're at the mercy of the court? Did
Oh,
you did they
they looked at me as the biggest threat to the United States of America. Listen, I was I went to court with Squeaky Fromme, who was Charles Manson's right-hand girl.
Oh,
She tried to kill the president of the United States, and the judge told me that I was a bigger threat to the United States than she was. And when she escaped, they had ABC, NBC, extra protection on the president of the United States. And they didn't do all that for me, but they said I was the bigger threat, and they gave me more time than her.
is she still alive?
Yeah, she is.
Okay, I know Charles Manson died.
Yeah, he died, yes.
Yeah, yeah, that movie, Helter Skelter, was one of the scariest. It was a scary movie. That was a segue, but so were you in the same prison with her?
I was, yes.
Okay, because when you mentioned her, I thought maybe so. Oh, so you met her when you all like
Did.
you
Yes.
did.
Mhm,
Because that
I'm
wasn't she in California?
yes, she was. And then I was put in maximum security prison, and so was she.
Okay.
So
Okay.
yeah, that's where I first met her, in maximum security.
Okay. Well, your story, you have a big smile on your face. So it must have turned out okay. But it's an incredible journey that you've been on. And I'm amazed that you're able to, when you write a book like this that describes things that you have done, did you get any pushback from the government about writing the book?
No, no, not at all.
Okay. I didn't know if they had any rules about disclosures, or I don't know. I didn't know. So that's why I was asking.
Freedom of speech, freedom of speech.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. But it's, people will still try to shut you down even with that. So
Oh no, absolutely,
yeah,
absolutely.
they
Absolutely.
do that.
Yes.
So the picture on the cover, is that you or is that a model?
No, that's not me.
Okay, that's a model.
Yes, yes.
Okay. And did you come up with your title, or did the publisher come up with it?
Well, let me just say this. So I had a great editor. I mean, my editor is the best in the world, Tracy Sherrod.
Oh yeah, I've heard of her.
Oh, she's the
Mhm.
best. If you don't have
Okay.
Tracy Sherrod, you don't have the best.
Okay.
So we
Okay.
work together. I mean, she's just been wonderful. And she worked very hard to get this book done for me. I mean, every step of the way. And she was fantastic. I love her.
Okay.
I do. Yeah, she's been great. But yeah, I mean, we did everything together. And I was when I got out of prison in 1999, and when I got out from 1999 all the way up until I'd say 2020, no one knew who I was. I never talked about my life or what I went through or everything that was going on, and it was just I just always felt like I was never myself, and so my daughter, when she found out about it later on, when she was a teenager, she convinced me to tell my story. And truly, in 2020 is the first time I ever really felt free, because I couldn't, nobody would hire me for a job because of my criminal record. And it was very hard. And then when someone would hear my name, Tanya Smith, it was like, oh my goodness, so it's kind of like I was walking around being someone that I was not. So, writing this book and Tracy helping me and my daughter, I'm free now. And I can talk about it, which I've always wanted to do.
Okay. Well, I wasn't aware of that, your history, or I didn't hear about it. It could have been more of a local story. Did it make the national news?
Oh, I was in everything.
I missed it. So, I totally missed it. So, and I keep up with what's going on. I just didn't. I missed that, or if I did, it's been so far back. When it
A
happened.
long time ago.
Yeah,
It was a really long time ago.
yeah, it's been a whole lot of news since then. To keep up with. So it's an amazing story. Never Saw Me Coming. And if you could show your cover again.
Okay, I will
One more time.
definitely. It's a great book.
Yeah, who's
I'm
your
really
publisher?
proud of it.
Who's your
It's
publisher?
Hachette, Little
Hesha.
Brown, Little
Hesha.
Brown,
Okay.
Little
Okay.
Brown.
All
Yeah,
right. And it's a hardcover. Is it in
yeah,
paperback too, or is it
yes,
only in
audio as well,
audio? Okay, so
as
on
well.
audio.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's an
All right.
enjoyable experience.
And
So,
on your audio, did you recite your book? Are you the voice
so
of
I
the?
had a narrator, Robin Miles, who is the best too.
Okay.
She was
Okay.
fantastic. So yes. So
Okay.
yeah, I'm really proud of this book, and I feel like a new person today, and I want everybody to read it, and I hope they enjoy it. So I'm looking forward to meeting my readers and just telling my story. And I thank
Well,
you very much for allowing me to do this. I appreciate
oh,
it
it was
very much.
amazing. We appreciate you. I think it's probably you're the first female. We've had other people that spent time behind bars doing different things,
Mhm,
and wrote memoirs about it. But I
mhm.
think you're the first female uh, that did a financial crime.
Oh, okay.
So,
And
so
it was
and we
victimless. I want you to know it was victimless. So I didn't take money from individuals. I just took them from things.
okay. Well, the base might say they're victims, but
Yeah, they do. They do.
but and we're getting close to 700 people that we've interviewed. So
Oh, really?
yeah, but the show's 4 years old, and
Wow.
getting
Congratulations.
close to 700 people. So thank you so much for being a guest on the show
All right.
and telling your amazing story. And never saw me coming, because it's in the first
Yes.
person, not her coming, because that would be somebody else telling your story. You're telling your own story. So this is it's interesting.
All
I
right.
it has my interest peaked. So
Well, if you ever want to talk
yeah.
again, let me know. I'll be more than happy.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Tanya, for being a guest on Black Authors Matter TV. And congratulations on releasing your book.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on. I am so happy.
All right. Have a great evening.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye-bye. Okay. Well, that was Tanya Smith. She had an amazing story to tell. And she has a memoir called Never Saw Me Coming. So we're going to move right along with our next guest. And for those of you all who watched the show, you all know that Rhonda and I went to New Orleans about a month ago to the Black Librarians National Conference. And we've already had two people on the show that we met there. And Autumn Allen is another person that we met there. And she has a beautiful book coming out. That's what caught our attention, is how beautiful the book was. And she's going to tell us about it. And Autumn,
Yes.
welcome to Black Authors Matter TV.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
So now, how do you pronounce is it Ayo's Adventure?
Io's Adventure, yes.
Ayo's, okay. And that's the book that you have that's being released on the 17th of this month.
Right. And that's a book that I edited and art directed. So it's not written by me, but that's one of the ones I worked on as a publisher.
Okay. And you had a copy of it at the conference. Do you have a copy of it with you?
I don't, unfortunately. Yeah,
So
I
do
gave
you
it.
have, which one, your book is called Step on Board?
Yes, I have a picture book called Step on Board coming out in hopefully 2025. And my debut novel came out last year. It's called All You Have to Do.
Right. Okay. And that's a hardcover.
Right. Yeah.
So show that book again. It's a beautiful cover.
Thank you. It's called
All You Have to Do. And so is it for middle grade or young adult?
Middle graders can read it. It's targeted for young adult, so teenagers, 14 14 to 18, but it's really crossover, and it's pretty clean, so can go down to middle school. But elders enjoy it. It's historical fiction set in 1968 and 1995, so prior generations enjoy sort of reliving our experiences by reading it. So it's really all ages.
Oh, okay. So what's the storyline for that book?
So you have two different protagonists. Gibran in 1995 is a young Black student at a predominantly white prep school in Massachusetts in 1995. And he wants to go to the Million Man March. And the school says, absolutely not. It does not align with our values. And he starts a sort of campaign on campus to get them to recognize that what the Black students need is not being met, because the culture of the school is based on white culture. And then Kevin in the 1968 storyline is at Columbia University, just when Dr. King was assassinated. And many of you may be aware of the campus protests that happened at that time. There were a lot of uprisings in inner cities, and then there were also protests on college campuses. So he's involved in a campus protest, and they sit in the administration building for a week with demands for the school to stop taking land in Harlem and to get out of the Vietnam War. And so it's sort of their stories. It's an intergenerational family story about the ways in which young Black people try to connect with movements for Black liberation when their families are trying to sort of usher them toward sort of a middle-class lifestyle.
Interesting. Now the young man on the left side, which the side when it's facing me, it was on the left. He's white.
No, they're both Black.
They're both Black. Okay. Okay. I
like
couldn't really tell because of the black and white motif on the other side. I wasn't sure to see that. So I didn't know if I was trying to figure out how their paths crossed.
Yeah.
So, okay.
That's part of the fun of reading it. So I'm not going to give it away, but I will say it's an intergenerational family story.
Okay. Now, what inspired you to come up with that plot?
Basically, the 1995 plot was based on my family. I am third in a set of 4 siblings. And we all went to prep schools in Massachusetts, and some of us had an easier time getting through than others. My brothers in particular sort of didn't follow the trajectory that you expect coming out of prep schools, going to colleges and, moving on to middle-class careers. And I really wanted to dig in and explore what makes some young people really averse to following that trajectory, and really resist the premise that if you, assimilate, you can, have the American dream. So they say, well, not only am I unwilling to assimilate, but I don't care about the American dream. So I wanted to really figure out what makes some young people decide that so early, because I think a lot of people sort of get disillusioned later in life. But when you're younger and you're being told just, get through school, get through college, and you'll get a good job, you kind of, most of us kind of believe it. And we just say, okay, well, I'll do what I have to do when I'm in that environment. But then some say, nope, I'm not doing it. And I wanted to figure out what makes some young people do that.
So did you grow up in a Muslim household?
I did kind of. My stepfather was Muslim, and he was raising us for about 10 years. So about half of my life, I had that influence, but I wasn't raised Muslim per se. I became Muslim in college.
Okay. So you and your brothers went to prep schools in Massachusetts, you say?
Yeah.
Do you want to name the prep school?
I mean, I can.
Is it a name that people would recognize?
People who are local to Massachusetts would recognize them. We went to the Park School and Milton Academy, and my older brother went to Buckingham Brown and Nichols, BBNN. So,
okay. And so, obviously your parents wanted you to go to prep schools, right? And prep schools are quite expensive. So, and were there many Black students at the school? Or were you like
No, no,
one of the
especially at that time. We were very much in the minority, and that's a lot of what I deal with in the book is that experience of in the 90s being a minority in a mostly white, mostly wealthy environment and knowing that there's something different about you, but nobody will admit it. Nobody will say anything about it because it's a colorblind era, right? And so everyone thinks that the polite thing to do is to not talk about race. And so nobody's saying anything and but you still feel this way. And so what does that do to a child to not be able to name what they're feeling or to even understand why they're feeling so different? So that's part of what I go through. Each character has memories of their childhood growing up and sort of traces how they got to be this rebellious young man that they are today.
Yeah. I went to Georgetown for undergraduate school,
Mhm.
and the culture of the wealthy white person is different from your regular white person.
Mhm.
If I,
Yeah.
because I went to high school with, it was our high school was 60-40, 60% white, but
Mhm.
40% Black. So there was no, racial, if anything, nobody messed with anybody, but we didn't have the racial animosities or discrimination or,
Mhm.
I had white friends and,
Mhm.
I was in the Keyettes, which was like the Key Club for girls. And,
Mhm.
I was in the honor society. So a lot of my high school friends were white,
Mhm.
even though our neighborhood was middle class Black,
Mhm.
but I had white friends in high school. Then I went to Georgetown and these were different white people.
Yeah.
It's different. I mean, and they went to prep schools. That was why a lot of them went to prep schools. And that was why I was asking you about the names of them. And I remember one in particular, one of the girls on the floor, because there were only like three Black, my freshman year, there were only three Black females in the dorm. It was a female dorm. It was only three Black females in the whole dorm. Um, and one of the girl across the hall, the white girl across the hall, she said, we had one Black girl at our school, but nobody talked to her. And
Oh,
she just
wow.
said it like it was no big deal.
Wow.
This poor, and I'm thinking this poor girl went through high school and
Wow.
nobody talked to her. And see, that's a different kind of racism
Mhm.
than violence.
Right. Right.
Somebody calling you names. Being invisible can be even worse. And I mean, it's just as bad
Yeah.
when you're in this environment, and it's challenging. So I know exactly what you're referring to
Mhm.
when you see that they 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 recognize the race when I was at Georgetown,
Mhm.
but they would say things that were incredibly dismissive,
Yeah.
and they thought it was all right.
Mhm.
They
Yeah.
didn't see anything wrong with it. They would just say insulting things to your face,
Mhm.
and they did not think it was anything wrong with it. That's what made it very challenging. So I can relate to what you're saying as far as your experience. And putting it in a book is a good way to make other people aware that may not have had that experience, to make
Yeah.
them aware of just how what a culture shock it can be, but
Mhm.
also very, very debilitating. You know, it
Yeah.
can be soul crushing to a certain extent.
Yeah.
You have to figure
Sometimes
out
you
and find your
know.
way.
Yeah, yeah. Sometimes from the outside, you don't know what a kid is going through, whether it's a child or a teenager, they aren't necessarily able to articulate what they're feeling. And
Right.
so from the outside, it can come across as being, unreasonable or
Or too sensitive.
too sensitive, right? Or demanding or
Yeah.
somehow defiant, all sorts of
Mhm.
behavior issues uh,
Right.
because you just don't understand. So, one thing I really wanted to do was to articulate how it feels as a child and as a teen in these environments. And I think it came across pretty well. A lot of people really who didn't have a similar experience really learned a lot from reading the book, and told me that they just keep thinking about it, and they really felt for the characters, which was satisfying for me because I was worried that people would kind of think they're too militant or too this, too that, but people really could understand where they were coming from once they saw the things they had gone through. So it's been a nice reception.
Okay, now that book came out when?
Last August, so just about a year ago.
About a year ago. Okay. So have you had any success? Like, have you gone to schools that have read the book? Have you done presentations in like high schools?
Really only one.
students?
And it was a school that went up to 8th grade. So they had read sections of the book and not the whole
Okay.
thing.
Okay.
But yeah, that was a good experience because it was a prep school that I was presenting at. And so,
okay.
I was able to say, this is the kind of experience that I went through at a school just like this, and so they were able to sort of put it in context and understand that maybe some of the kids in their own classes are going through similar things.
So do you feel things have improved?
In a sense, yes.
Overall, like in the culture
Mhm.
of these schools, that
I
the
think,
people or like the
right,
next generations are different, or I don't know,
yeah,
more flexible, maybe less arrogant. That being cloistered in that wealthy environment makes people arrogant.
yeah, yeah,
It just leads to arrogance. Because
yeah,
you really, the prep school attitude is that we're better than those other people. I even like when I was at Georgetown, there were white people there that weren't wealthy,
mhm,
although most of the white people were wealthy.
right,
But they looked down on the ones that were just regular, middle class
mhm,
or working class was just, almost as bad as being black.
mhm,
I
yeah,
mean, being growing up in that lap of luxury like that makes a person arrogant, just because it breeds a sense of entitlement and superiority.
right. Yeah, I mean, I think that is a culture, sort of a cultural process that is hard to interrupt. But I think
Yeah.
that the institutions themselves have changed somewhat in that I went back to Milton Academy, which is the high school I went to, and I was amazed by how diverse it was now. So, it seemed like maybe half of the students were students of color, and a lot of international students and a lot of diversity within, the student of color um, community. And so that was encouraging to see. Um, I hope that by being exposed to so many more experiences, that the wealthy white families are also sort of having their eyes opened a little more to the different experiences that people are having. Um,
Yeah, maybe their horizons have been broadened by
yeah,
that.
yeah,
Because
I
even
would.
Georgetown's
So.
different. I mean, that's a lot different from when I was there. Because when I was there weren't that many international students. Now there's a lot of
Mhm.
international students.
Yeah.
So and from all over, all
Hmm.
over the world.
Yeah.
But just exposure to different people,
Hmm.
it's kind of like traveling to different places.
Right.
Even within the United States, there
Hmm.
are, places that are completely different from other places.
Yeah.
And, I encourage people to get out. And the United States is big
Hmm.
and it's a very diverse country,
Yeah.
just geographically, with the topography. Um, some places look completely different from others.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever been through like Arizona or New
Mhm.
Mexico, that area of the country is completely different from anything on either coast
Mhm.
because there's no ocean, there's
Yeah.
no, uh,
And even the culture I find is very different. I'm from
Yeah,
Boston. I grew up in Boston, and people who would come here from other places would say, "Oh, Bostonians are so rude and mean and cold." And to me, that was just normal. But then when I traveled both within the States, like, in the South or overseas, I would be like, wow, people are so friendly. Why are people talking to me and being hospitable?
yeah.
I realized,
I
oh,
only went
okay,
to Boston once, and that was my impression. It was
yeah.
cold and rude. The people were mean and cold. The weather was cold. The people were cold.
Yep.
I've only been once, but I'm working. My co-host is on Rhonda. This is Autumn Allen, who we met
Hi,
in
Autumn.
Friends, and
Yeah.
she's telling the amazing story about the book that she had out last year called. Show the book again because I don't have it in my. I
All
don't have
you have to
it in my
do.
mind. All you have to do, and but the cover is so beautiful.
It
Now,
is beautiful.
who did your cover? Like,
Salam Mohammed, he's an artist that I found on Instagram, and I rushed to tell my publisher he would do an amazing job. And thankfully he was able to put us on his schedule.
oh, okay, it's beautiful cover.
Yeah.
So, now do you have a sequel or another book coming out?
I am currently writing another novel that is set in the same world. So it's basically the same family, one generation later.
Okay.
So that's what
Do
I'm
you have a
working.
title yet?
Well, what should I
You don't
say?
want to say because
We haven't decided 100%. We have
is it
titles
embargoed or whatever?
we have two titles we're choosing between. So
Yeah.
I'll keep
Now
it to
you have the other book, Aya's Adventure, and
Mhm.
you said you played a different role with that
Right.
book.
Yes. I
That
am
you
the
Aya.
editor. Yeah. Editor and art director for Io's Adventure. And that book is coming out this month, and it's written by Ein Heath Drew and illustrated by Erin K. Robinson. And we'll be having a launch event on September 19th. And yeah, it's very exciting. It's an adventure through the African diaspora from Afro to Zulu. So it's organized by alphabet, but it's the little boy is going through different experiences. He's playing in a calypso band, and then he's visiting a Dogon village, and then he's traveling with Mansa Musa. So he's traveling through space and time, throughout the continent, the Caribbean, and even South America, and experiencing different cultures within the African diaspora. It's such an exciting adventure, and the trailer is online on YouTube.
Okay.
It's
And
kind of a history lesson and an adventure all in one.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I love
It
that.
was beautifully done. I remember going through. I didn't get to go through the whole book, but I remember looking on the inside when you had brought.
Yeah.
I guess it was an advanced copy of
Right.
it with you, and it's beautifully done. It caught my eye and Rhonda's because it was just so beautifully done. So how
Yeah.
do you get to be like an art director for a book for publishers?
Yeah,
How do
so I went to school for children's literature. So I studied both writing for children and sort of the critical side of sort of assessing the messages that are coming through the books and that kind of thing. And then I did some internships at a publisher in Massachusetts. And after a few semesters of internships, I did some consulting for the same publisher, and then they ended up hiring me as an editor. So at this particular publisher, it's a small publisher, so the editors also art direct. Um, in
Okay.
some of the larger publishers, you have an editor for the text and an art director for the art, but we get to do both, which is very exciting. One of my best experiences for Io's Adventure was meeting with the artist and sort of talking her through different ideas for different spreads and watching her sketch in real time and sort of put characters in different places and discuss how it's looking with her. So yeah, it's you just the positions don't come up very often, so
Right.
a lot of times you have to work your way up from internship to assistantship to
It's a great way to learn the business from kind of the bottom up.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I didn't even know that you could major in children's literature.
Yeah,
I didn't know
I
that was a
didn't.
major.
Yeah, I didn't know until until I was like 30 something. And I heard someone say that they were at a children's literature symposium at this school and at a university in Boston. And it's like, wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute. Adults can study children's literature? Because at that time I was homeschooling my kids and I was having trouble finding books that I wanted to share with them. And so I jumped right on it and applied. It was a graduate program. So typically as an undergrad, you can take some classes in children's literature, but the real specialization would be as a
concentration.
graduate children.
It
Okay,
makes sense though.
it does.
I'm guessing with children's literature, you're not just learning how to write it, but you're learning maybe how to choose it, how to reach children with different types of stories. Is that what it's all about?
Yeah, so I did a double degree. So I did a Master's of Arts in Children's Literature and a Master of Fine Arts in Writing for Children. So the Master of Arts was the critical side, was really using different critical lenses to analyze the different books, the same way we do in literature classes, you know, in English major. And then the Writing for Children, that was the one that was really how to craft a story, how to, you know, make a plot, how to edit and revise and that sort of thing. So I was able to look at it from both sides, which was really helpful.
So, you know, the illustrations in children's books are the main thing.
Yeah, one thing that we talked a lot about was how the illustrations and the words sort of come together to create something that's bigger than you know, the separate parts. So the words don't have to describe everything that's in the images because the child is listening to the words while they're looking at the images. So they get to sort of soak it all in visually and also hear, you know, something that's maybe a little different from what's happening in the pictures. And that's often part of the joy, you know, of picture books is seeing, oh wait, but you know, the words didn't say about this, but I see this puppy on every page, or you know, something that the artist sort of added in on their own accord. So a lot of fun to figure out.
Wow. And you have some other books coming out next year. So are
I
these
was
books?
just going to say the same thing. I said, it looks like 2025 is going to be a busy time for you.
I think so. Yeah. If we
So
stay-
are these books you wrote, or are these one of the ones that you did the art direction for?
So I can't quite remember what I put on the form, but
Ramadan, the one's Ramadan on
yes.
Rama Road.
Ramadan on
That's
Rahma Road. That's one I art directed and edited. Yep.
okay, and then Kwasi and Nana Ruby Learn to Swim.
Yes, that's another one I edited and art directed. So those are both
Okay.
coming out from Barefoot Books in the spring.
Oh, okay. Well, in your background now, how old are your children now? You said you homeschooled.
Yeah, now they're 20, almost
Oh,
18.
they're not small children. You know,
Yeah.
our children are always our children, but
Yeah.
This is true.
did
They're
you
just not the babies. They're just our babies.
Yeah.
They are. They are. So did you homeschool them the entire time? The whole
More, I've been homeschooling the whole time I've had children, but occasionally one child has been in school. So one child went to school for 4th and 5th grade, another child went for 11th and 12th grade. But for the most part, we've been homeschooling the whole way. Yeah.
Okay. And then they end up going to college as well.
My eldest is in college now. Yes, she's a junior now.
Okay.
Wonderful.
Okay. So if someone wanted to homeschool, what would you say, like a piece of advice to give for a person who is homeschooling or wanting to homeschool? Because that's becoming more common.
It is.
Especially since COVID.
Mm-hmm.
Students lost so much learning and so many things happened, and it's like for them to catch up,
Right.
it's very difficult.
Right.
And they get the personal touch with at home.
Yeah.
But just give like some feedback on the homeschooling experience.
I mean, basically, I would have to give a pep talk because it is hard. And, you know, you'll want to quit and you'll doubt yourself and you'll think, oh, am I doing enough? Am I doing a good job? But you're the person who cares the most about your child. And so you're going to do an excellent job, even if they're behind in a certain subject or, you know, you didn't get to finish that curriculum or whatever it is. Have confidence in yourself and just to realize it's pretty much full-time parenting. It's teaching a person, education is about teaching a person how to be in the world. It's not just about putting information in their head.
I love that.
Yes.
And I think the good thing about homeschooling now is there are a lot more resources and a lot more support for
Mhm.
homeschoolers. I once even saw a group of parents who gave their homeschool children their own prom because they didn't go to
Oh,
regular
nice.
school.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
So I think with having that support system, having resources for developing your curriculum has
Mhm.
actually made homeschooling a little bit easier than it used to be, say 10, maybe 20 years ago.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
there are more resources now. My daughter went to a private school. Let's see, she was there 7th, 8th, and 9th. Yeah.
Mhm.
And the school she went to was a classical Christian school, and it was started by homeschool families.
Oh,
So the homeschool families, they wanted to the socialization piece of it.
mhm.
And so they would be with kids who had been similarly taught. And
Mhm.
so I think it was maybe 10 families that ended up opening the school. And now it's big now. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know how many students, but they built their own building. They were sharing a building when she went. They were actually sharing part of a church. But
Mhm.
they built an extremely beautiful campus. They had a lot of backing. They had some private money that they were able to get. And but it was started by homeschoolers.
Yeah, I think it's
And
Nice.
and and they still had people who they had a league, an athletic league. Because what did you
Oh,
do for athletics with
um,
your kids?
yeah, my kids mostly did different after school programs, gymnastics and ice skating and
Okay,
whatever they were interested in at the time. Yeah,
okay,
and town sports too, like town soccer and things like that.
okay. All right. Well, we're at the end of our time. Will you show your book again, so people can, if they tuned in late, they can see this beautiful cover that was done. It's a beautiful cover. A cover can sell a book.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And
Mhm.
it's a fun title because I'm
It's
famous for saying all you have to do is
Mhm.
so
Yep.
whenever I say that now my family makes fun of me. So I love the title of your book that
Thank
automatically
you.
captured my attention.
Yeah.
very good.
It's so
Well,
neat.
Autumn, it was great meeting you in New Orleans, and
Thank
thank you for being on
you.
the show.
Thank you so
And
much.
continued success with your endeavors that you're
Thank
doing in
you.
the publishing world.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Okay,
Thank you for being here.
okay. So our final guest will be on momentarily. And Rhonda, I had told the audience that we were going to be in New York on Saturday at the
Yes.
Harlem Book Fair. Our tent is R5, the letter R and 5. We're the third row back from the main stage. In a great location, kind of in I think the fifth booth tent over from the
Yeah. So
left.
even if you have read our books before, just come by and say hello. Let's take a picture together. Let's just
Yeah.
have a good time. And then just tell your other friends about what's going on with us. Because we're
Yes,
gonna have lots of resources at our tent.
we are, and we're taking, of course, our literary themed T-shirt line. And we have caps. We have long sleeve shirts that say Black Authors Matter now, because the people who are in cold climates have told me they need long sleeves. So we have long sleeves in the Black Authors Matter, and also the Harlem Renaissance shirts for the first time. So we'll have all those things there. And this will be my first time in New York since 2000. So it's
Wow.
been
Well,
a long.
this is gonna be my first time in New York since July.
I know you just went because you left the event in New Orleans and went to New York. But I've
Yes.
never been to the Harlem Book Fair, so I'm excited.
Yeah, I went one time when I first became an author. That was like one of my first big festivals. So it's gonna be fun to go back 20 years later.
Yeah. All right. So our final guest is Terri Burney, and um, Terri is an author with BK Royston Publishing. They're a friend of the show. And as a matter of fact, on next week's show, we're going to have Julia Royston with BK Royston Publishing and Shanitha Burton with She Publishing, because they're going to be at the festival. And so they're going to give you all an update on what they've been doing since they were on last, what you can expect from them at this year's festival. I know they're both going to be on a publishers panel. And so, and Julia's doing her own seminar on how to build your brand with your book. So you're going to be able to meet them, and it's going to be great. And so as soon as Terri comes on camera, I think she must have walked away. She must have logged in and walked away from her computer.
There she is.
There she is. There she is. Lydia posted take pictures. So we will be taking pictures.
Lots
And
of them, doing some content,
lots
doing
of pictures.
videos.
Yeah, we're going to be posting on Instagram and the festival Facebook page. So check it out. You tune in. And Julia Royston says she's super excited about being at the festival this year. So Terri, Burney, welcome
Hello.
to Black Authors Matter TV.
Thank you for having me. I'm honored.
Thank you for
You're
being
welcome.
here.
And your book is called What Can Toddlers Do?
Yes.
And you have a background in early childhood education.
Yes,
And
I do.
so you
Been
have
teaching for
lots of
over 40.
information for all the toddlers that you've encountered in your years as an educator. What can toddlers do? What did you want people to get from the title? Is it telling people these are things that toddlers can do that you don't know that they can do? Or are you just okay? All right.
No, the things that toddlers can do.
Okay.
And people always ask me, what can you teach a toddler? And I always say, first of all, they know they are intelligent little beings, that everything is brain development for them. So they're learning everything. Their brains are just like a sponge.
Yes.
So you can teach them how to do everyday chores. You teach them manners. You can teach them to listen, because they're great listeners. They just don't have language.
Right.
Okay, now
I think we forget
And a
that
toddler is the age.
toddlers.
I was
I'm
going to
sorry?
ask about the age of a toddler. That's what I was going to
Yeah,
ask.
Oh, the
How do
age of a toddler is 12 months to 3 years old.
12 months to 3. Okay.
Okay. Now I was
Yeah, I'm
gonna
saying I
say
think we
about
forget that toddlers have their own way of communicating. They understand what's going on around them. They may
Yes.
not understand it the way we understand it, but they know that there's something going on around them.
Yeah, they have comprehension and understand. They just don't have language.
Yeah.
You can
Well,
ask
some of them have
to
language.
do
Some
one.
of them have language. Some of them do have language.
Well, yeah, they develop on their own level.
Right. My daughter was talking very early, and she never stopped. When she started, she never stopped. She
I
was
love
talking. She could do a conversation when she was 2.5. She
Mhm.
could have a conversation with somebody, and people would be amazed that she could do that. And I said, well, I talk to her like I talk to adults in
Exactly.
terms of just
Mhm.
the language, the words. They can pick up whatever
Yeah.
you feed them. They really can.
Mhm.
Now,
And some
is
are
it true? Is it true that and I tend to agree with it, but I just wanted to hear your take on it, that we should talk to our toddlers as regular people and not try to use so-called baby language like boo 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 goo 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 and things
Yeah,
like
you talk to them in
that.
regular language, just like I'm talking to you. They have comprehension and understanding. The more you talk, the more language they'll get. If you're a multilingual family, the more language you talk in your family cultural language, they get it. They understand it. You can give them tasks to do, and they can do it.
Yeah.
So yeah, don't, as we say, the motherese. Oh, baby, you can do this and you can do that. Mommy loves you. They understand just like you and I understand.
Yeah.
Makes a lot
Yeah,
of
they
sense.
also can pick up on negative things too.
Right.
So
can.
that's why you have to be very careful because, there are 3-year-olds that are cuss somebody out. 'Cause
Definitely.
that's what
Be
they
careful
hear.
what you say and be
Yeah,
careful how you say it.
that's what they're hearing at home. And my mother ran a daycare center for 25 years.
Oh,
And she
wow.
used to say, you know, these parents don't realize their kids tell everything. They tell everything. Everything that
Exactly.
happens at home, they tell
We hear it. We hear it at school.
it.
Sometimes
This
we
is
do have to
true.
call.
I learned a lot of things by my daughter coming home and telling me what was going on. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah, they tell it. So you have to be careful. And
Yeah.
and you also, I hate to hear adults, and I hear sometimes when I'm out and about, when adults, and it's normally the mother, because the dad's normally, if the dad, I don't hear dads do this. Talk like cuss at their kids. I don't
Mhm.
hear that. I don't hear dads cussing their kids, but I hear mothers doing that sometimes.
Mhm.
Um, with an angry tone, and this not good for children.
No.
Those kids will grow up and be, you know, they won't have a loving tone said to them on a regular basis. That
Mhm.
makes them harden as adults.
You're right. You're right. They have emotions just like
Yeah,
we do. And
yes,
they pick up on those emotions. That's where the behaviors come in. The
yeah,
negative behaviors come in.
yes, they do. So your experiences in early childhood, when did you get started in this field, and what led you, what drew you to it?
I actually started with my aunt. My mother's oldest sister, had a daycare in her home. She had single families that she babysat for, and some she kept overnight. And so we helped her. I helped her in the daycare, and I really love the smaller ones. Take care of them, change their diapers, give them bottles and everything. Fell in love with kids. And then from there, I started going to center-based daycares and loved working with kids. So I worked with all ages from infants all the way up to preschool.
Do you believe it's a calling?
I do. I really do. I believe it's a calling. Some people do it as a regular job, but you could tell when people actually love what they do.
Yes, you
Yeah,
can.
my daughter is a preschool teacher, and right now she's in the infant room, but she's
Oh, wow.
worked with kids up to, I think, 3 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And I do believe that she has a calling, because she always says that she said she wants to have her own kids one day, but she's like,
Mm-hmm.
I hate being in childcare. She says that, but then she gets to the school and the kids love her.
Yes.
As soon as they see her, they run up to her and hug her. She works very well with the infants that she works with right now,
Mhm.
and they seem to take to her. I'm like, whether you like it or not, you have a calling for this, and she doesn't want to hear it.
No, I think you're exactly right. I think you have to have a calling for it. And some people don't recognize it. And when
Right.
you tell them, they don't want to accept it. But you can actually tell that they do.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of my favorite things of being in childcare with the children. Like you said, loving on you, greeting you in the morning, giving you hugs, leaving their parents just to come to you from arms to arms. I actually love that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. They're not crying when they're leaving their parent, because they know they're going to a teacher who loves them
Yeah.
just as much.
Yes.
Yeah,
I love.
my sister, who had no years in education at all in her career, she retired, and she decided to get a part-time job teaching reading in the public school.
Mhm.
And I think 5-year-olds, they're kindergartners. And she said she didn't think she was going to like it. But she said the kids are they just always hug her and say they're so happy that
Yes.
she's there. And,
Mhm.
it makes her feel good. So
And she probably always comes home with a story, because I tell you, my daughter comes home with a different story. She loves to
Yeah.
mimic the kids. And and then every time we go somewhere where there are a lot of kids, she's like, I wonder if I'm gonna run into my kids. And I know she kind of wants to.
I do that. I still get letters. I still get phone calls from my kids, some of my older ones. They do, or I'm in a grocery store and I hear Miss Terri, and I go, okay, is that an adult? Someone I saw. And then I turn over and I go, okay, who are you? And then sometimes they'll tell me how old, and I say, first thing I ask is, how old are you? And I go, oh my God, I remember when I taught you. I really do.
Yeah, well, children remember the teachers that really cared.
Mhm.
You know, that's a memory you have for life.
Yes.
Teachers that really impacted you, and they're the ones who care. And a lot of them are tough. You know, when
Yeah.
you get to the higher grades, you know, my tough teachers are the ones that really had the biggest impact, because
Right.
you know,
Right.
they expected us to do our best, you know, to put forth the effort, and they got the best out of us. And so
Mhm.
that's what people remember. So your book that you wrote, What Can Toddlers Do? What led you to write a book about it?
I had was going to write a book about actually poetry. And then someone gave me the idea, you have siblings. I have siblings in my classroom, and I've taught kids that have families in. I have one family now. They have preschooler, a toddler, and an infant. An infant's in my room
Wow.
now. And they said, well, you have siblings. Why don't you write a book about siblings? And I said, you know what? That's right. I can. And then it occurred to me, like I said, I was in the grocery store. Someone said, what, are you an early childhood? And I said, yeah. They said, what age do you teach 5? And I said, no, I don't teach 5. I teach toddlers or young toddlers. And that was the question. What can a toddler do? What can you teach a toddler? You can't teach ABCs, but you could teach them math. You're doing numbers every day with everything you're doing. You're doing it, you're building, your construction, your engineering with the Duplos, with the Legos. People don't realize that's math. That's science.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what you're teaching them. You're teaching them how to take care of a house, how to take on interaction roles that you do by washing the table. Give a child a paper towel, let them spray the table with water, you do the soap, they're wiping off the tables.
Okay.
Taking care of a baby doll, you're teaching them role play, how to take care of a baby.
And they're internalizing all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And
They are.
they're probably doing it at home too, because they learned it in school.
Hope so.
Definitely. A 3-year-old or 2.
But I have siblings, so
they can
teach
learn
it with their
ABC.
babies. You see it. I'm sorry. What did you say?
Well, I was saying a 2 or 2.5. They can learn the ABCs. They might not be able to recognize them all the time, but they can sing the ABC song.
Oh, they definitely can sing the ABC.
And then they can see them from that.
No. When I used to sing the song, I thought LMNOP was one word.
Yes, we hear a lot of that. We laugh.
That's like that word. It's an onomatopoeia. It's the word that means that a word is a sound. It's a long word that ends with Pia. I can't remember what it was because I haven't heard the word in so long. But I'm gonna look it up when I get off the show. Anyway. But yeah, toddlers, they are very smart. And they can actually be bilingual.
Mm-hmm.
Easier to teach them more than one language up to the age of 8. I saw a talk show that had some language teachers on it, and they were saying that up to the age of 8 it's very easy for a child to learn 2 languages or more than one language simultaneously. But after the age of 8 it becomes more difficult. Not impossible, but age 8 seems to be the point where it's more challenging. But before they can just, like you said, and they're sponges. They can
Yeah.
suck.
The earlier you can get them, the earlier they learn. And it's a lot of it could be cultural too. You learn it at home, you learn the different languages. I have families that are bilingual, that are multilingual. Dad is from another country, mom is from another country. They're raising them here. So they're learning English in school.
Right.
But when
Right.
dad comes in or mom, they're both speaking languages, and this child can comprehend and understand exactly what they're doing. Go get your code in Spanish. They're doing it.
Yeah.
And they're not even two.
Yeah. A
So,
lot
yeah.
of
Did you
times
show
when-
us a copy of the book yet?
Yeah, she
showed you.
did. She
What
did
the
at the
child
beginning,
do?
but
Oh, there it is. Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, now I
in
remember.
the beginning. But you can always show it again. So people can see it. And that looks like a proof.
Yeah, this is a proof
Mhm.
of it.
Yeah.
That was the first one that came in, and I did a lot of
You
things
did
in
some
it.
edits.
Yes.
So what can toddlers do? Is it a book you read to toddlers?
Yes. I've read
Okay.
it to my classroom, and the 2-year-old classrooms has it, the 4-year-old, 3 and 4-year-old classrooms have it, up to the 5 and the 5.5-year-olds, and the families throughout our daycare, because they order it from Amazon.com, or they
Okay.
order it from me personally.
Okay.
So
And
they
so
have
this,
their home libraries too.
okay. So this is your first book.
This is my second book.
Okay. So your first book. Oh, Long and Tall. That was the
Yes.
first
Yeah.
one. So do you have a
First
copy of
Long
Long and
Tall.
Tall? Okay. So you, in that book, you talk about, what do you talk about
The
in that book?
various ways of transportation that children get around the cities. And it's in the names are in different languages too. So it's a journey about children taking various ages, taking their favorite modes of transportation, traveling to their destinations with the grown-ups they love.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
Now did I see a giraffe on the cover?
Mhm.
No.
Yeah.
Okay,
She-
is that a mode of transportation?
This one is
Is that a mode of transportation?
For some people.
you have a bus, you have a bike. I'm sorry.
Okay, you have a bike. Okay, so I saw the
And a
giraffe. I
bus.
didn't know if the giraffe was supposed to be a mode of transportation.
Yeah.
So
I
that's why
think
was
that would
trying
be
to
a
figure
fun
out.
book
Thank you.
for kids when they are traveling with their parents.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yes.
Especially those long trips when you're going from state to state.
Yes. Thank you.
So do you have another book you're working on? Are all of your books going to be geared towards toddlers or children? Or
No,
do you-
I think my next book will probably be about family. Probably my nieces and nephews.
How do you
Some of the
choose your
stories that,
subjects?
huh?
How do you choose your subjects?
What interests me, what I have a passion about. I love my toddlers. I love my classroom. I love my family.
Love it.
Yeah,
So when do you think you're going to be starting on the next book? Not that we're rushing you.
No. I
Probably
was,
sometime next year.
okay, yeah, because if you're on a roll, you have to keep it going.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yes.
keep the momentum high.
Yeah, sometimes it's like that. I need to, next year is my year to do a couple more books. This year I decided I wasn't gonna do another one this year.
How many
But
books have you written?
15.
Wow.
Well, you know, when I did my first one, I never expected to do any more.
Yes.
So, and then on this show, I meet people who've done 30, 40, 50, 60,
Yeah.
100 books.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, wow. That's a
Yeah.
lot.
And then some of them still have full-time jobs and they're able to do all of that.
Yeah, I don't
Wow.
know how they do it. I come up with all these different stories and people and places,
Mhm.
storylines.
Sometimes people tell you story and you go, okay, how can I input that in a book? You know, sometimes it just, you say, okay, I'll wait on that.
Yeah. Yeah. So somebody said, how many kids did you teach? This is Lydia. She's a regular viewer. You probably don't know that number, or do you?
No, I've been teaching
Yeah,
since I was 17 years old. I'm 62 now.
Okay, so
So
a lot.
that's
Oh,
a
so
lot
it's
of
been
years. I
it's
can't.
been over 30 years, because I thought you had been teaching for 30 years, so it's been more than 30 years.
Actually, in a center-based daycare, I probably have been about 30 years. When I started with my aunt, I was 17 years old in her home daycare. So,
Okay.
Wow. Yep,
Yeah.
that's definitely a
It's a
calling. You would
calling.
not have stayed
Mm.
as long as you did
Mhm.
if it weren't a
You
calling.
you really have to
so
love it, too.
I love it. I actually do love teaching kids. I really do.
That's wonderful.
That's better for me.
Well, I'm as a
They
parent,
tug at
thank
your
you.
heart.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you, because it's dedicated teachers like you who have a real impact on kids, and they know what they want to do and who they want to be and how they want to be because of teachers who are dedicated. There are kids who have been given up on, but because a teacher cared about them, they were able to turn that around. So I thank you for just the love that you've poured into the children.
Thank you.
Yes. So, people can get your books, both of them, Long and
And-
Tall and What Can Toddlers Do, on Amazon.
Amazon.com, and they're both on BarnesandNobles.com.
They're also in the Royston Children's Bookstore.
Yes.
Okay, so
Mhm.
at bkroystonpublishing.com.
Yeah, we put all the links in the chat, so everybody who's watching can go ahead and click the link. Purchase a book for a teacher in your life, for a toddler in your life, a
Yes,
parent.
please.
Lots of different people can benefit
Yeah.
from this book.
Or a daycare center.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
There are lots of those everywhere. Well, thank you, Terri, for being a guest on Black Authors Matter TV. We really appreciate you. And
Thank you.
congratulations on publishing your book.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. It's my
You're
pleasure.
welcome.
Thank you for being here. Have a great evening.
You too now.
Thank you.
Okay, so we are at the end of our show, although we're not signing off just yet, because I did want, I let you all know we're going to be in New York at the Harlem Book Fair. Our tent is R, and it's a row R, like in Robert, 5. And that's
That was well timed, Gwen.
yeah, it was. But R as in Robert, that's what people say when you like reciting something on the phone. I always use R as in Robert. Some people use something else for R, but everybody knows Robert starts with an R. So, but that's where we're going to be. It's the third row back from the main stage. And we are hoping for clear skies. I've been checking the weather reports. I told Rhonda, I've been checking them twice a day. And right now there's a 35% chance of rain in New York. And I am hoping and praying and keeping my fingers crossed that there's no rain, that the clouds will just dissipate.
Yes, absolutely. We need to have a beautiful day for the Harlem Book Festival.
We do. And if any of you are going to be there, be sure to stop by our tent. We'll have a Black Authors Matter TV retractable banner. And Rhonda and I will both be there with lots of our stuff and push cards and everything. And regarding the National Black Book Festival, we're very excited. It's coming up. It's only 7 weeks away, and it's going to be awesome. It's going to be the biggest one we've had yet, and we're just really, really excited. We have is it Successful Black Parenting Magazine is going to be doing some broadcasting from there, some live streaming from there, and we just got all kinds of stuff going on. So we're looking forward to all of it. And so I think that's it for tonight. We didn't have a book to give away, and we were going to be back next week after, and we'll and be sure to check our Instagram and Facebook pages for photos. We'll be taking pictures at the Harlem Book Fair. So that's all I have. Rhonda, do you have anything to say in closing?
No, I'm sorry, y'all. I was running late. I had to do some stuff with my coworkers, and I got back here as fast as I could. But I really enjoyed doing the show. I love seeing all of you guys. Thanks for the support. Thank you for helping this show to grow and to be a support to so many different authors. That's what this show is all about. So we appreciate you.
Okay, well, I'm Gwen Richardson signing off. We'll see you next Tuesday on another amazing episode of Black Authors Matter TV.
And I'm Dr. Rhonda Lawson. Have a wonderful evening and a great week.
Thank you for tuning in and join us next Tuesday at 7 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Eastern for another edition of Black Authors Matter TV.